welcome and good evening. You can tell it's just about nighttime here. Hopefully the light will last while we're going, so I won't waste too much time. I wanted to be here by our blooming hibiscuses, and we also have an orange plant, orange hibiscus over there, but these are pink, and you see they're closing up for the night. But there we are. So today, I'm going to read the 23rd Psalm in the King James Version, and you guys don't even need the Bible, really. You can just say it along with me as I do it, so that'll be cool. But you can get the Bible if you want and follow along. But I am using the King James specifically. And I'll explain what happens in the newer versions in just a sec, and why I'm using the King James. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I wanted to use the King James specifically because they follow the pronouns that are used in the Hebrew. Many of you know that I was an English teacher for a long time. Let me see if I can move out to a little lighter spot still, since I'm losing the light. There we go. Many of you know that I was an English teacher, and one of the things we talked about when I was teaching them writing was specifically that you have to watch which person you're writing in. First person is where you say, I did this, I did that. Second person is where you say, you did this, you do that. And third person is where you say, he did that, she did that, they did that. And that switching back and forth confuses the reader. So generally, if you are writing a story, if you're going to do any sort of creative writing, you should pick the person that you want to do it in. Either, I did this and I did that, or, he did this or she did that or they did that, and stick with it through the story unless you have a specific reason to deviate from that. So the whole idea is that you are writing purposefully to communicate what you want. And 9 times out of 10, when you read a story, it's going to have the person be consistent through the story, which makes sense, but there it is. You're just going to have that consistency of person through the story. But what does our psalmist do here when he's writing? So David, presumably, when he was writing this, he thought, what he used, the Lord is my shepherd. Now that's third person. He's talking to you about the Lord. So third person, there he is over there. The Lord, you see him right over there, he's my shepherd. So I'm going to have everything I need. So he's communicating with the person that he's talking to about the Lord being his shepherd. And he keeps going until the middle of it. And then he says, what happens? You prepare a table before me. He's not talking to me anymore. He's talking directly to God. He's changed person in the middle of the stream. Just what I told all of my all my students not to do. And here he's just doing it. Just willy-nilly, oh look, I think I'll do it. But remember, don't change person midstream unless, I'm going to move one more time here and see if I can get a little more light. Don't change person midstream unless you have a specific reason to do it. Oh, there we go. That's a lot of light. And look, there's the moon. You can tell it's at nighttime. And you can see the lumber that I'm using to build my shed with. Sorry about that. Well, that might get me 5 more minutes. So, he changes person midstream. He's talking about the Lord did this, the Lord did that, and then he says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. What? For you are with me. And he's talking directly to God. And that use of pronouns, I think, David was doing specifically to mirror our own experience, our own successful experience in being God's disciples, Jesus' disciples in the world. That David did it specifically to model what is going on in his own life when he was successfully being a follower of God, a member of the kingdom. Now, he wouldn't have thought about it in that sense. He was king, but he didn't think about it in the kingdom of God in the same way that you and I do, because we were taught by Jesus about that. But that as we're members of the kingdom of God, we really speak in the two persons that we're talking about. We're talking in the third person, and we're talking in the first person. We talk in the third person because that's where you and I live as far as being able to witness to God's power in our lives. That's what David was doing. He was saying that here is how my life is lived successfully. That I live under the shepherdhood of God. The Lord is my shepherd, and now it's all taken care of. But that horizontal relationship isn't the only one that David has, is it? Because he is witnessing to the fact that God has been there for him in the ups and the downs. You don't have to read his story much to tell there were just lots of downs. He really had a hard time. And yet he was doing this from the perspective of having looked back and said, yes, I did have a hard time. But God was there for me every step of the way. And that was the important part. So the Lord is my shepherd. The horizontal, I have that relationship with you that I'm telling you about what God has done in my life. But also, I have the relationship, and here's the vertical. He's talking to God. He is relating to God his thankfulness, his joy, his awareness of all that God's done for him. So that when he has that, as he's modeling the reality of his relationship with God, he's showing it that it's with other people as he's freely admitting God's provision in his life. And he's worshiping God as he talks to God, freely admitting his love and need of the Creator, and that God's in his life, and that it works both ways. So that's pretty cool. I'm afraid I only have another minute or two before I'm plunged in darkness. Here's another shot of the moon. Whoop. It looks full in that shot, but it's really a waxing gibbous moon, so it won't be full for another little bit. So when we read the psalm, he is talking about himself being a sheep, being a sheep of God's pasture. But he recognizes that as being a voluntary sheep, that he has stepped under God's lordship. And in that sense, you and I replicate that by being members of the kingdom, that we're members of God's kingdom because you and I have voluntarily put ourselves under the lordship of Jesus. And as we do that, we don't just live in the one dimension. God has given us the provision. God has given us the ability to live in two dimensions at once, up and out, so that we have the relationship with God, we recognize God's power in our lives, and then we talk about that. That's what witnessing is. Remember, if you're ever called to be a witness in court, you're not making stuff up. You're called to tell the truth of what you saw, of what you experienced, what you heard, what you tasted, what you felt. And as we have that relationship with God, we're able to witness to what we have seen, what we've experienced, what we know, so that the risen Christ isn't a theory. It's the reality of our lives. It's who we are. Well, it's only 12 minutes, and I'm afraid I'm just about out of light here, but there it is. Two persons. So when you're writing, stick to one. Stick to first person. I did it, he did it. Or I did it, I went here, I went there. Or third person, he did this, he did that. We almost never write in second person. David didn't either. He wasn't telling people what to do. He was saying his own reality and recognizing God's touch in his life and sharing that with others. So as we do that, we faithfully replicate the psalm, but more than that, we're faithful members of the household of God. And in so doing, we echo back the strains from thousands of years that have recalled God's faithfulness in our everyday walk and transmitted it because we know it's true and we can share it with others. And there, I'm just about out of light. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.